So I wanted to do an eval of Matas Buzelis. There's some B-roll here of his highlights, and I think that's how a lot of people scout these prospects. But I actually think that can be more damaging than helpful a lot of times. The best way, obviously, to get a feel for a prospect is to watch a full game start to finish. So that's what I did. I watched his game against the Perth Wildcats that he had earlier this season, and then any play that was even remotely interesting, I clipped it so we can just go through all of those and get a really well-rounded view of both his strengths and his weaknesses and what, an actual game looks like for him. So that's what we're going to do here in a second. This is going to be an unfiltered take. There's no script writing for this, no editing. It's just like a really good way to get, the raw footage of a prospect. So here we go. Okay, so this is the first play I watched where he defended this handoff keeper option. They had him switching 1 through 5 in this game. It seems like he was pretty capable of doing that, and then, just his size prevented this layup opportunity from happening. So yeah, he's got good size. I think he is listed at 6'9" with a 6'10" wingspan, so not a great wingspan necessarily, but he does get a ton of blocks. So let's look at this next play. Yeah, another deflection here. The way that the Ignite were guarding ball screens, it's kind of interesting. So yeah, they're bringing 2 defenders to the ball throughout this game, which means that they're really counting on defensive rotations from the rest of their players. Buzelis is right here. He's a low man, so he needs to pull in and take this roller. Sar is the roller here, and he does. He does a good job of getting there early and then deflecting the ball to get the Ignite possession here. All right, so this one, I just included this because he's a pretty good rebounder. I really like that he has good box out instincts, which not a lot of players these days do. But yeah, just on this one, he tipped the ball to a teammate. All right, let's look at this next play and what happens. Okay, yeah, this one was just, showcasing his switchability again. He switched on this handoff action and contested the 3 pretty well. So being able to switch even just like a couple positions is super valuable in the NBA these days. So I think that's kind of why Arturas Karnisovas was pretty high on him. Okay, this one, we saw this a lot throughout this game, which was he was not a good finisher. I heard that he was better in other games, but in this particular game, he did not finish very well. But he did have pretty advanced dribble moves, good bag. So this one, he switches. He gets the switch on to the guard, uses his size and a nice spin move to get a pretty easy bunny, which he just misses. Sar affected that shot. Sar was a really good shot blocker in this game. All right, this is a seemingly simple play. He's up here in this corner, but I just want to include it because he was very good at corner crashing throughout this game, which means that, when he's in this corner, he just dives towards the basket, either to get offensive rebounds or to get cuts. On this one, he didn't get the ball, but if he had, he would have had a layup. And if this shot had missed, he would have gotten a pretty easy putback here. So, yeah, he just had a very high understanding of spacing and especially like getting into pockets, creating pockets to get the ball for easy shots, which we'll see more as we keep on watching. Here are more good defensive instincts where, yeah, he just deflects this pass. Okay, yeah, this is the most common baseline out of bounds play that's run in the NBA. It's called triangle. I think JJ Redick and LeBron James discussed this on their podcast, and they called it America's play, which I'd never heard of before. Most people just call it triangle. But the way it works is this guy sets a rip screen. This guy dives to the basket, and then this guy that set the screen, he comes off this guy for a 3-point option in the corner. So yeah, Buzelis, he stayed with this original guy who's diving to the basket pretty well. But as I said before, the way that the Ignite were guarding these ball screens is, okay, they bring 2 to the ball, which means somebody has to pull over. Buzelis had this rotation earlier in the game, but this time he's in the dunker spot. It's his rotation, then he needs to come over, then this guy needs to sink down. But he was late. Look, he starts moving when the ball is already in the air, and this guy's going to catch way too deep. He's just not going to be in a spot to make that play. So, you know, I mean, yeah, he doesn't have every rotation down perfectly, which is normal for a 19-year-old. He's still very, very young. Like I said, we're going to see the good plays and the bad plays here. Here's another one where I said before that he's very good at understanding space, and this is what I mean. This is another very common NBA principle. When this guy drives, you're going to make a 45 cut over here. This is what the Thunder do extremely well in their offense. So he times these cuts well. Timing cuts is a skill. It's not just as simple as, okay, cut. Like, you really need to understand how cutting works in order to be able to do this kind of stuff. He sees that this guy is worried about the corner, so he curls his cut. And he gets stuffed at the rim, which, you know, we're going to see more of. But just the fact that he's able to create these shots, I think when he does get stronger, those are going to be pretty good finishes for him. Okay, here's another one. Starts out here, very slowly creeps along the baseline, and he just creates a window, raises his hand as soon as that window is open, gets the ball on the block, and this time he finishes for a layup. You can't do these things without having high feel, high basketball understanding, and that's something that you can't teach, which gets me really excited when I see a player that's capable of doing that. The other stuff that he's not good at, he's not strong enough. You're going to hear that 10,000 times throughout Summer League, throughout his rookie year. Every time he misses a layup, they're going to hammer it because it's very true. But you can gain strength. You can't gain the spatial awareness skills. Here's another one where, you know, good box out, and he did these grab and go plays pretty frequently in this game. So he does have some ball handling ability, and at his size, his 6'9" size, it's kind of special. Okay. So on this one, he is matched up against a slower defender. I would really like to see him break this guy down and get to the basket. Now, this guy was like totally clogging his spacing, and the Ignite, God, they were just such a disaster. Like, this is not a team that played very well, which makes it hard to evaluate Buzelis. So that does make it harder for him to get to the basket, but still, like, he settled for a pretty crappy low percentage fadeaway jumper there. Got to improve that shot selection. Okay, here. Again, defensive motor, something that you cannot teach. Look at the ball pressure he has here. And then, you know, he finds a way to get back in the play, second effort. Great job of turning his hips. I want to watch him turn his hips on this drive and get in the way of that shot, causing a miss. Wasn't in position to contest that layup, but, you know, really good two-effort play there. Okay, this one, another really, really nice example of defensive motor and awareness. Again, Ignite, putting 2 on the ball. Somebody has to come over. Buzelis is going to tag the roller and then recover out here. Watch him. He gets down on the roller and then he closes out. Okay, he jumps on the closeout. Not great, but then he gets back in the play and blocks this from behind. So just a good set of tools where, you know, he can make these like tiny little mistakes and he can still impact these plays. And keep in mind that he's playing against a Perth team. These are professional players. These are not 19 and 20-year-old kids. I mean, he is at a severe physical disadvantage in most of these matchups because these guys have been, you know, working on their bodies for years and he hasn't. And he's still able to compete. So, you know, that's another really good sign. This is like a pretty simple one. So this is like basic Chicago action where he's guarding this guy who's going to come off the down screen, and then usually there's a handoff. But what this guy does instead is he curls the screen. And I just want to include this to show Buzelis' screen navigation. He stays right there. That option is not open. Okay, yeah, I remember this one. So this is like a play-in semi-transition where he just dusts this guy. Great finish too. So he did have like some good finishes here where like he wasn't going up against a really good rim protector in Sar, and then he had some other ones where he just like was trying to go into a brick wall. But I think when he was able to use his skill and craft, he was able to finish. When he was trying to power through guys, he just got demolished. Oh, there's another one, yeah. Let's go back and watch this. So he blows by, and then a really nice pass here. This guy should have finished this shot. That was Sar again affecting that shot. Okay. This one, watch him in the corner here. What I like too about watching Buzelis is he's not one of these guys that just stays in the corner and stands still. He's always kind of shifting around a little bit. Again, trying to find these pockets. He's lifting up to create better passing angles. He's sinking down into the corner. He's hovering around the dunker spots. Just keep an eye on him. You know, he's just moving around here, moving around. And then he finds when his defender has his head turned, that very split second, he cuts to the basket. Gets blocked by Sar twice here. But just being able to create those opportunities, those are going to be finishes once he gets stronger in the league. And not every single player can do that. So the fact that he's able to do that at this young of an age, really good green flag for his feel. This one, I mean, like, yeah, no analysis necessary here. He just had a good nose for the ball and then dunked it over Sar. He had 2 dunks in this game, so he does have some pretty decent athleticism. Okay, again, spatial awareness. Look at the Ignite. They're overloading this side of the floor. He's telling his teammate, yo, I'll set a screen for you. Come balance out the floor. His teammate ignores him because the Ignite are not a good team. So instead, Buzelis just spaces out himself. Jab step, 18-footer swish. So yeah, his jump shot, that's going to be a swing skill. You're going to hear that a lot too throughout, you know, the next couple months. I believe he shot something like 26% from 3, so not very good. He was a better three-point shooter in high school, and the difference between the high school and NBA line that the Ignite play on is pretty substantial. Buzelis said he was not concerned when asked about his three-point shooting at the combine. He said, like, just don't worry about it. And yeah, this was a point that my guy Larry Golden brought up. Laro had Buzelis number 1 on his board. Just the fact that the form looks great, okay? He shot it well in high school. Again, just that distance, as Laro pointed out to me, they're just not going to shoot a good percentage, like, as soon as they make that transition. So yeah, I would not worry about his low percentage. I think he's going to be a fine shooter. Something that I noticed, you know, I talked about his defensive motor. Something that came with that is he has kind of a tendency to overhelp. Like on this play, I mean, Sar is not going to get to the rim here, and they already have like 2 guys in the paint. He's helping off the strong side corner here, which you really are not supposed to do. I mean, you can do that in very rare occasions, but definitely not here when the ball is contained. But you know, he tipped the ball. He got a deflection. He has like a knack for getting these deflections, and he's a good enough athlete and toolsy enough that he can recover into this play and cut off this drive. That is something that he's gonna have to clean up at the NBA level, though. Like, you can get away with that here, but yeah, it's gonna be a problem if he does that throughout his career, which I don't think he will, because that's a pretty normal tendency for rookies that usually gets coached out in the first couple of years. Okay, this is another basic NBA action that he's going to see a lot of. This is a chin cut where Sar is going to set the screen. He gets pulverized by this screen, and this guy gets right downhill. I don't think this is really totally on Buzelis because, first of all, the big guy, I think this is Izan Almanza, who's also... he was going to be a second-round pick before he went back into the draft, but he's supposed to tell Buzelis that the screen is coming, and also he's supposed to sink back to help against this cut. He doesn't, and yeah, they score here. Buzelis looks bad, but again, I think that's more on his big man than him necessarily. Okay, this was a set play where, yeah, he came down here, set a screen, and then popped out to the corner. And, you know, a little bit of movement, and he hits this 3. So I think that he projects as more than just, you know, a standstill catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, which is not super valuable. I think he does have some movement shooting skills. Yeah, but we're going to have to see. I mean, that's kind of just like guesswork. Here, yeah, good dig on Sar, but I don't know if this was like the game plan or not or whatever, but I mean, like helping one pass away in the post. He does recover pretty well there, and then again you see him switch. He's switching 1 through 5 a lot here. Forces the travel on Sar, so another good defensive possession from him. These are like a lot of, I'm giving you guys a lot of like, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is good, and that is not intentional. Again, I picked this game randomly because there was a full game on YouTube, and this was the first thing that came up, and I did one of these videos for Reed Shepherd. Probably a third of Reed's plays were bad plays and 2/3 were good plays. In this particular situation, I mean, it's just, this is like closer to 90% of his stuff is good. This was a bad one. Poor timing here. But yeah, again, his lack of strength showing up here. This was a play for a quick post duck in, and he just didn't get a good seal. Forced a turnover on his point guard. That was definitely on him, though. And this is another bad one where he just got blown by. But that didn't happen that often. But, you know, I'm including it for completeness sake. He has very advanced dribble. This was such a nice move. Yeah, lefty layup. Again, he was a surprisingly good rim protector. So I think he's like 6'9" with a 6'10" wingspan, so not a crazy wingspan. But I think he just knows how to like time stuff very well. That shows up with all these deflections that he gets as well. He wasn't considered like a great defensive prospect, and I haven't heard a lot about his defense, but I think he's going to be like a pretty solid defender at this level. This play, he turned it over, just tried to get a little bit too fancy with it, loose dribble. But he didn't have a ton of turnovers in this game. I think that was his second lob dunk of the game. So yeah, that good athleticism that I talked about. I'm just going to run through these clips again while I just give some overview, summary of what I saw. So yeah, I did not watch a ton of Buzelis before the Bulls picked him at 11, and I didn't really know what to think. You know, the people whose opinions that I really respect were divided on him. Some loved him, some thought he wasn't that great. There wasn't really like a lot of in-between opinions, to tell you the truth, so that's kind of interesting in and of itself too. But yeah, I thought that, you know, he's just going to be like whatever, but as I watched him, I mean, I really liked him a lot more than I thought he would, just because of the stuff I was mentioning before, the stuff that you cannot teach, the feel, the spatial awareness. He seems to have all that stuff. And then the stuff that had scouts concerned, maybe why he dropped from, you know, this was a guy who was potentially the #1 pick coming into the preseason. Then he was top 5-ish on most boards, and somehow he fell to the Bulls at 11. Yeah, like the shooting concerns, I don't know. I mean, like, shooting is really hard to project, but I think he'll be okay there. The finishing, you know, I think his finishing was better in other games from what I heard. But for me, like, yeah, if he can just add some muscle to his frame, especially his lower body, I think that stuff is just going to resolve itself. So overall, I just think it's like a really good pick. I think it's a much better pick now than I did when the Bulls made it, and I'm really excited to see him play.